you can play this and that, but still it's a risk in the beginning of an actor career, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Gosh, it's weirdly a very personal question because and complex and not actually that I can sum up in a situation like this in front of so many people, but it was a crux, it was a turning point, and I could feel it, and I knew that whatever decision I made was going to be impactful. Ultimately, it came down to a 3-year-old inside me screaming and saying, "Why would you even have to think about this? You have always wanted to be Spider-Man. This is the closest you're going to get to being Spider-Man. I don't care if you're 45 years old. Put on that goddamn suit and get in there and give your heart and soul to it." And then I would try and argue this 3-year-old, but he's a gangster. He has an arsenal of weapons. He has a bazooka. So I really had no choice. And then the question comes, well, how do you move with this decision? How do you handle yourself in the new dynamic you have with an audience, in the new dynamic you have with yourself as a more visible person, when whatever that means? I'm negotiating that every day, and I'm never going to be settled with it. It's always going to be a dance, and a ride, and kind of an adventure. And if you see it as an adventure, and if you see it as a ride, which it is, and a dream, it's kind of not real, then I can sleep very well. But yeah, we'll talk some other time about it. It's much deeper and bigger than that, but thank you for the question.
Thank you, Andrew. But Dane, didn't you want his little part? You are an addict in comics. At least I read a story where you said that you're really in comics all your youth. So, did you ever want to play Spider-Man?
Well, everyone wants to be Spider-Man. That's why everyone goes to see Spider-Man. You know, and I think, you know, Andrew said something the other night about every kid sees themselves in Spider-Man, sees themselves in Peter Parker, and they inspire them to be heroes within their own communities or their own families or just within their life. Everyone wants to put on that suit. Everyone wants to be Spider-Man. But the fact that I get to try to kill him, I think that's second best, you know? Because when you're playing pretend and somebody's Spider-Man, someone else is the bad guy. So it still comes back to playing pretend as a kid, and it still fulfills those dreams.
And can I interject something? Because I think his question is very point. But what's interesting about taking these roles, if you look at all of the people that are playing superheroes, the one thing about them, and I've said before, they're great actors. If you look at Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man, if you look at Christian Bale, and these guys are like Oscar, you know, potential. So when I see these guys, and I've seen your work before you become Spider-Man, I think it's great because now you can go enjoy your favorite hero, but you're also enjoying one of your favorite actors. So I think the lay of the land has changed a little bit. I think that we're open as consumers to watch our favorite actor bounce from a huge franchise that touches everybody in the world to a small, you know, art house film. And I don't think you have to worry about that now because you have so many people that are in this. Look at the cast. Look at this cast. You know, you got some like heavyweights when it comes to acting.
Question over there.
My name is Marc, Radio Berlin in the back. It's a question for Andrew Garfield. You just mentioned the physical comedy of this movie. How did you prepare for it? I mean, there's a scene in the back of the truck where you're doing like kind of a catching up yoga thing. I don't know if you were really inside that suit, but how do you do it? What is your preparation for this?
I have to be honest. I'm afraid. No.
Yes, be honest.
I'm afraid that scene. Well, no, I'm not afraid because it's a testament to the magicians that created that scene you're specifically citing. That's a CGI Spider-Man, and it's great that you didn't know that. That's just a testament to those artists. But in terms of the scenes that I did do, yeah, it's something that I've been long interested in and have long admired, that physical comedy thing. And yeah, working with this guy Cal, and just watching a lot of cartoons and watching a lot of Charlie Chaplin, and then you kind of just have to show up and play. It's all about play. That's what I discovered. And there's no right and wrong. You get to do it over and over and over again until that one specific moment works out perfectly, and timing, and you know. So, but yeah, it was a lot of kind of research and kind of filling the cauldron, and then just seeing what happens on the day, kind of thing. But really fun to play.
But the physical preparation, would that be like ballet hours, or I don't know? I mean,
dance, dance. Yeah. I worked with a fantastic woman called Michelle Moeller, and another great dancer called Jack Ferber. They're both contemporary dancers in New York, and they were hooked up to me and choreographers through and Andy Armstrong, James Armstrong, the stunt coordinators, and yeah, it was important to me to feel the ability that a Spider-Man would have in my body, the potential of the body, and it's a beautiful thing to explore. You know, what our bodies can do, and it's something that I can't stop straight. You know, it's like, you know, we don't sitting behind laptops all day nowadays, so it's like you kind of have to really kind of jam yourself to remember that the body needs love and nourishment. So nourishment.
Marc, I have a question directed to you because we've been talking about the actors. There's another star that's very important to the movie, and that's New York City. What was the response like? Because Spider-Man is such a New York superhero. How did the New Yorkers behave? And I heard that this has been the biggest production ever to be shot.
It was the biggest movie ever shot in New York, and we did it because Peter Parker's from New York City, and it's as much of a character, as they say, as anybody else in the movie. What's interesting, I mean, we did a lot of crazy action sequences. We crashed 88 cop cars. We destroyed Times Square, and we had to pay New Yorkers to actually look twice, because when we were shooting those scenes on the street, we had them in the background. They were like, whatever. They didn't really bat an eye, so that proved a little bit awkward in the background. So we had to replace them with CG people who paid attention and let their jaws drop like we needed them to. But listen, New York informs it in many ways. Like what's great about New York City is it's an international city. It is a place of immigrants. It's an island that, there's a huge, Chinatown. There's Italian people. There's people from Latin America. There's all sorts of languages that come, and it's representative of the really extraordinary border-bashing quality that Spider-Man has. And that is there's something mythological about the nature of New York City. And I think that's what has allowed it to sort of expand in the way it has.
Thank you. Dane.
Hello. Oh. Hi, my name is Colleen. I'm a fan, so I'm pretty much writing for my diary or my blog or something, so it's not really professional. And yeah, still. Okay, and I was wondering, we've seen two brilliant villains in this movie, but we've also seen towards the end of the movie that there are going to be some more villains. So I'm asking you, what can we look forward to, and what are you most excited about in the future?
Well, there's one of the things that we've been developing from the very beginning. We started at the beginning of this movie, as we were writing sort of the universe and building this out, we discovered there are so many characters from the Spider-Man universe that that you really need to dig into. And so there's a universe that could expand out from there, and there's characters like Venom that could be a whole movie unto itself. And so yeah, exactly. And Alex Kurtzman is working on that script right now. The Sinister Six, which is some of those iconic villains. I mean, Spider-Man has a brilliant rogues gallery, so that in and of itself will be a film. And then in terms of Spider-Man 3, we'll just have to wait and see. But all these things are going to be orchestrated, I think, there's a really brilliant group of people that are working on those films right now.
We have another fan with a question with a baseball cap.
Yes. Hi, I'm Dennis from Germany. My English is a little bit too bad, so I have to ask in German.
You have to guess.
Marc, Webb, wie kommt es eigentlich, dass Electro im neuen Film so weit von der Originalvorlage weggeht? Also sprich, im Originalcomic hat er ja nur diesen gelben Anzug gehabt und jetzt hat er ja ein komplett neues Design.
But he basically asked why does Electro... Did you understand? No, he was asking why Electro in the movie differs so much to the Electro in the comic books.
He doesn't actually. I mean, we used a different reference in the comics. The Amazing Spider-Man had that green and yellow suit with the star mask, which would have been cool, but a little bit absurd in the world that we're trying to do. But we based it more on the Ultimate Electro. And that with that darker suit, which to me, the insulated quality of it made sense for what we were trying to achieve.
And also, too, if you're paying really close attention, like we talked earlier, that Electro is just being born, so he hasn't really figured out what's going on. He actually grabs that suit from someone who was just on the ground, and he just throws it on because he told him, you know, you got to put some clothes on. It would be interesting to actually see him come back and find that evidence. I'm just saying.
Ja, aber ist es dann nicht im Kontrast mit dem Namen, weil der Titel heißt ja The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Und wenn man dann in der Vorlage von Ultimate Spider-Man angeht, ist es ja irgendwie ein Kontrast.
Okay, he basically says, he's a reader. He basically says, so if the look of Electro is based on the Ultimate Comics, why is the movie called The Amazing Spider-Man? Isn't that in clear contrast to...
I messed up, sorry. No, I mean, listen, the comics, we did pull from all the different comics. There's 50 years of comic books that started with what Stan Lee and Steve Ditko did. And there's inflections from Mark Bagley, Brian Bendis, Romita, Todd McFarlane. I mean, there's all these different incarnations of Spider-Man. What was great about our job was we got to pluck from all of our favorite things, and then we put that under the Amazing Spider-Man banner. Those were the choices that we made. And to me, it's about creating a world that feels like you could walk out of the theater and it feels familiar. I didn't want to make it too absurd. I didn't want to make it too broad. But it was about putting one foot in the world that we recognize, and one foot in the bombastic world of the comics that we know and love.
Ja? Aber die hat den Film gefallen.
Ich habe ihn noch nicht gesehen.
He hasn't seen the movie. Only baseless questions and only questions in the chair. Vielen Dank. Tolle Frage. Wir haben noch Zeit für eine Frage. One more question, and we would like to have it from Spider-Man himself.
Hello everyone, I'm writing an article about how it needs to be Spider-Man for one day. And apart from that, in real life, I'm a medical student, and so I like it very much to notice the clinical aspects and the disease, the illness. So I'd like to know from you, Mr. Webb, how important it is to create scientific credibility still when it's all fictional.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of layers to that question. Technology in this movie is kind of like magic is in Harry Potter. It's the way to access the subconscious. It's what delivers the sort of magical, mystical realism that we encounter. But technology is, I think it's poignant because it's something that's very powerful in the world, and it can be used for good or for evil. And it's something that I think people really recognize. My grandfather was a scientist, my father's a scientist, my mother's a scientist. It's something that I've sort of grown up with, and I've always loved the magic of it, how powerful it can be. And so it was really important, particularly with the goblin, to find an ailment that felt like it had a biological precedent. I mean, it is a mythological, retroviral hyperplasia is a mythological ailment, but it's something that I think allowed the audience to feel connected to Harry's compulsion. I think that's very important in this world, is to try to embrace the technology, because the technology is the delivery device for the subconscious, and that's what a big story like this kind of mythological story requires.
I know that we're running out of time, but there's one last question directly to Jamie. I mean, we all know what the magic of Hollywood can do, and you are great as Max did and as Electro, but what did you think when you saw sort of like the end product, the look of Electro, the way that he looks in the movie?
I'll tell you what was interesting is when we were actually doing it, they would I would have to put a blue screen on my body, so it was all silicone. But the CGI guys that were on the set, they were sort of dialing everything in and saying, wait till you see how this looks. And basically, I sort of got a little bit of a sneak peek, and he said, imagine when Electro gets angry, a thunderstorm goes off in his body. So I thought it was fantastic how they put it together. What's crazy is that people watching it don't know if it's me, don't know if it's CGI, which is interesting, because it's seamless. So I thought it was fantastic. Turn it up.
Thank you.
Turn it up.
Thank you so much, Dane, Jamie, Andrew, Emma, and Marc, for coming out to Berlin.